Jen, it's great to see you. And I want to go back a couple of weeks from when you talked to us, because you got a lot of people talking here in the newsroom as you described a millennia-old empire, right? And the prospect of toppling the Ayatollah. Every simulation you said the military has done is that if you took out the Ayatollah, you empower the IRGC. I know that you're a sage, Jen, but I could also ask you if we've simply forgotten some of the lessons of the past.
First of all, Joe, thanks for having me back. It's great to see you. This is a circumstance in which I wish I had not been right, but I do think that that is, in fact, what we are seeing. A lot of attention is, of course, being paid to the lines of succession, particularly as various regime figures are killed in U.S. and Israeli strikes. But particularly with the naming of Khamenei, excuse me, whatever state he may be in, all reports are that this was an installation more or less by the IRGC. So I do think we're seeing that consolidation of power.
What do you think of the talk of troops on Kharg Island, occupy that position and use it as leverage to reopen the strait? Is this something that could work?
I mean, certainly not on its own. As Secretary Panetta said, I think that you would have to secure parts of the Iranian border itself in order along the Gulf, or along the Strait, in order to really secure passage. I would note that one of the many reasons that this has not been undertaken in the past, despite decades of, I think, U.S. administrations, Israeli governments wanting to dislodge this regime, is precisely for this reason, because the ability of Iran to disrupt the strait has been well known and always seen as, no pun intended, but the nuclear option. And that does seem to be where we are at now. And getting it back open is proving, I think, to be every bit as difficult as everyone feared.
Boy, so the secretary also talked about what would be required to keep the strait open, the number of troops involved, and we've already started to pulverize their military capability in that area. General Dan Kane said A-10 Warthogs are at it. We've got Apache helicopters at it. If this continued for some more time, another month even, would that be an easier exercise, or is it simply just not acceptable to be wrong once? If you have an errant attack coming off a speedboat that hits a cargo vessel, then all of this is for naught.
Exactly. It's not just about air or land superiority. It's the fact that it doesn't take a lot for Iran to continue to disrupt, whether it's drones, whether it's mines, exactly as you say, whether it's a speedboat passing by. And so now that this has been unleashed, convincing, and it's not about going on TV and telling people that it is now safe for transit, but it's about insurance companies and transit lines having that confidence. And so restoring the confidence that Iran will not utilize those tactics in the future, I think, is going to be a very, very hard sell, regardless of what we do militarily. And the other thing I would note to that is, I think there's no doubt that there have been significant tactical successes through this. And yet we still keep attacking, right? Which says that despite the president's assertions, we have not, in fact, taken out all of their capabilities. And so those can continue over time to be rebuilt, reasserted. And so, it really muddies the water as far as what an off-ramp to this could in reality look like.
When you were acting Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Near Eastern Affairs, what would your thought have been right now on a potential regional conflict? How close are Iran's neighbors to engaging?
So I think we are continuing to see them do everything in their power. I mean, they take hit after hit and are clearly resisting what is a very understandable instinct to hit back out of concerns that the damage that we've seen so far just expands if they engage in this conflict in an offensive way. That being said, as you've alluded to, the economic and global economic damage globally, but certainly to the Gulf states and their long-term economic visions cannot be overstated. It is catastrophic. And so I am watching that carefully. How long can they endure this without feeling like they need to take a more direct role in it?
No, that would be a big deal, and I can only imagine the market reaction. What's $200 billion tell you, Jen, before you leave us today? That's the figure we're expecting for a supplemental budget request, and people are trying to read into that. Does that mean restocking all of the supplies we gave to Ukraine, or is this implying some sort of anticipation of a longer conflict? What do you buy with $200 billion?
You buy a lot with 200 billion. There's no question that our stockpiles do need to be replenished. And so from that angle, I think that those numbers are not as stunning as one might think, but it also does suggest that this conflict, which initially was described as very short, we're now several weeks in. I don't see a resolution to this in the next two or three weeks at least. And if you do insert boots on the ground, whether on Kharg Island or on the coast of Iran itself, that complicates certainly what the outlook is for then pulling them back and for this conflict really coming to resolution. So I think the 200 billion number is concerning.